Live from Democrat. I feel like we're at the convention.
Right.
Hi, everyone. We see you coming in. It's just going to be a couple of seconds before we get started on our CAY award orientation. We're going to get started in 2 minutes. Give the attendees a little bit more time to log in. Okay, it is time to get started. Welcome, everybody. I am Jamie Barnhart, the Executive Director of the Washington Metropolitan Chapter of the Community Associations Institute. We are excited to see you virtually, of course, this year for our Community Association of the Year Awards orientation. This event is hosted by our Public Outreach Committee. Our presenters today are our moderator, Greg Brooksher, with General Manager of Westlight Condominium. Thank you, Greg. Krishana Lorich, the General Manager of Adagio Condominium. Candace Lewis, Portfolio Manager of Cardinal Management Group. Derek Wilson, Community Manager, Fairwood Community Association, Gail Ledford of Daventry Community Association, and Ron Diane of Westridge Swim and Racquet Club. So welcome to all of our presenters, and thank you for taking your time and sharing all of your expertise and experience with our attendees. I want to take just a quick second to thank our chapter partners for their support and commitment to both our chapter and to the community association industry this year. It has definitely been an interesting year, an interesting 2020, and without our chapter partners, we would not be able to continue doing what we do for our members. So thank you to all of you. And with that, I am going to turn the reins of today's presentation over to Greg. Greg has been an active member of our chapter in many areas for many, many years. He does hold a PCAM designation and has been a judge of CAY for quite a number of years. And so he is a wealth of information for us today. So with that, Greg, I will turn control over to you.
Okay. Well, I want to welcome everybody and thank you for joining us and thank the panelists. This is a great program. We appreciate you participating. The idea here is to help you learn more about the process of the Community Association of the Year Awards. When we've held these sessions in prior years, it's almost turned into a round table. It's a little bit of a challenge in the Zoom webinar setting to do that. But as we go through, we will present. If you have some questions, try to raise your hand so you can be called upon, and we'll try to answer them. If your question pertains to something that's a little bit further in the program, we'll mention such and maybe hold it till we get there. But I want to thank everybody for, again, joining us today. Quick review. I want to thank and highlight last year's winners again in the Small Community Association category. Lakeport Cluster was the award recipient. Spring Hill Community Association received the award for the medium-sized community. Daventry was the recipient of the Large Community Association of the Year Award. Westridge Swim and Racket was the winner in our Very Large Community Association. Heritage Hunt was our Charitable Community of the Year, and Dominion Valley was our Communicator of the Year. They all had wonderful applications, and it was a pleasure being able to review them and provide them the awards. And we're really thankful that this year we have some of last year's winners on this panel. It's one thing to hear from the judges, it's another thing to hear from those who have already gone through this. So the most important first part is, where do I find the application and how do I fill it out? I'm going to turn it over to Liz Schell and the chapter office to help you all step through those two questions. So Liz, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Greg. Everything is online, actually, as we did last year. The application can be found on our website. Just go to caidc.org, and then you would just go to Outreach, then Community Association of the Year. I will include that in the chat, the actual link, so you can easily access it. This site, this webpage is a wealth of information. We do have 3 contests. So there's the General Community Association of the Year. You saw that there's categories: small, medium, large, very large. There's also the Charitable Community of the Year and Communicator of the Year. So all of that information is online. Also, we have the essays from the past 2 years for all of those categories that you can check out. And finally, we did do a number of articles. I know several of our panelists actually have contributed articles to Quorum, which is our magazine, and those links can also be found on that page. So how do I fill out the application? Well, it is online. So you would just go to that page, find the link, and then just start filling it out. If you want to save it and return to it later, you can, not a problem. There is an option for you to save, and then you would ask for a link, which is then emailed to you. That link, you can actually use that link to go back into the application that you've partially filled out. And you can also send that link to other people if you want someone to proof or review anything that you've done. You can send that link over to them and they can review it. The nice thing also is, once you've saved your application, you have 30 days to go back to it. And once you go back to it, if you save it again it starts over again. So you have 30 days from that point. So if there are any questions, I'm glad to take those. Okay, I just got a question. Can you jump around from one question to another? The answer is yes. So when you open the application, you will see all of the questions. And it saves it as one big file. It also, when you go to fill out your answers, the ones that require more than a yes or a no, it will show you the entire answer, not just the first few lines. That was a concern last year, and we've addressed it. So, but certainly as you're going through the process, if you have any questions, please feel free to actually reach out to me. I'm glad to help. The other thing that we meant to mention at the very beginning is that this will be recorded. Actually, it is being recorded as we speak. And our intention is to post this on the website so that those people who are interested in maybe applying for the Community Association of the Year would be able to do so, and they'll be able to view this presentation. So we are being recorded. Are there any other questions?
Liz, I'm going to jump in for a second.
Yes, sir.
In the course of doing the application for this, it takes quite a while to do it. It's not a one 10-minute session to do it. So it's really helpful if you print the application out ahead of time so that you can know where you're going, because some of the questions relate to things later in the questionnaire that you can kind of put all the pieces together. But then you have a roadmap for filling it out. You can collect your documents and then start working on it. Just a little tip for
that's true. The PDFs for the applications, actually, say the questions, are actually on that web page that I referred to, the Community Association of the Year webpage. So you can actually print out the PDF and use that as your template as you start to fill out the application.
Just to jump just to jump in there and piggyback on what Ron had said as well, that it's important to look at the entire document and to make sure that you allow yourself plenty of time, because most of the responses are not going to be a yes or no, and then you move on to the next question. It's going to take a lot of time and thoughtful time and input from many others to answer some of the questions. You're going to want to be able to turn to your treasurer if you're not the treasurer. And so don't think that you can knock it out in a quick weekend, especially when it may be difficult to get in touch with your property manager or some others without ample time to do that.
So therefore, if you're planning on applying, it's best to start now.
Right.
You have plenty of time to complete the process.
It's also a good board building exercise if you share the questions with the board, because the person who's filling it out doesn't necessarily have all the answers. Which contractors did we use for a particular thing? Everybody, if they have input into it, then they're all supportive of it. And that way you can sort of build your board at the same time.
Mm-hmm. And it can be very helpful if you have one point person who's compiling it all or getting all the information and tries to complete the form and the application and get it in. So it's kind of coming from one voice, even though many people may have participated.
Right. And yeah, just to reiterate that, what Greg is saying, we all have different writing styles. And so one of the things that's very important is that there is a consistent writing approach to this. Certainly you'll want the content input from other people, but you should select one author.
All right.
Okay, are there any other questions out there at this point? The one thing I want to mention is also, I'm being a logistical person, I'm the one who actually receives the completed applications. Until you click submit, it hasn't been submitted yet, and you can always make adjustments. So as long as you have that link, you've saved your online document, you have the link, You can go back into it as many times as you need to. So you click submit, it's an open document for you.
Okay, well, we'll move along. And just again, a quick review of the awards category. There are three. There's the Community Association of the Year Awards. And as I explained and showed, we have different categories based upon the size of the community. We have the Charitable Community of the Year and also the Communicator of the Year. Everybody's welcome to choose which one and apply. And I know sometimes we've had a community apply for the Community Association of the Year and or the Charitable and or the Communicator. We may break those out on who actually, on getting one. We prefer one award per community, but just keep that in mind. We don't want to hold you back from applying for any of them. So judges' perspective. Many people want to know, so judges, when you're looking at these, what do you think? What's your perspective? So I'm going to address that, and Candace is going to help out, and Krishana, when she comes in, can help out too. From the judges' perspective, judges come from within the entire industry. So we have community association managers, and we have business partners. And if we can get a volunteer leader on the panel, we like to do that too. If one of the managers who is is a panelist works for the management company that manages the association that's applying, that manager will not review the application. So we try to, keep it as independent as possible. We all carry and bring our own perspective from as judges. But we've all been in the industry. We all know what we're looking for. A lot of the application you will see is sort of basic objective questions, and then you have the essays. Fill them out as best you can, but it's very critical. Make sure you're following directions. If it says single-spaced, single-spaced. If it needs a word count, we want a word count. If you go over the number of allowable words, that's not following directions. And you can probably appreciate when we're looking at a Community Association of the Year application, if directions aren't followed, it's a hard hill to overcome by us because at minimum, excellent communities follow directions. I don't know how to put it any other way on that. So please do make sure the directions are being followed. We go through it all the time. Candace, did you want to add anything?
No, that was a very good point of following the directions, because I know when we were reviewing them last year, there were, the directions were so simple. I thought they were simple and clear. And we're always willing to get feedback on how we can make things more clear if you've applied in the past, and maybe we need to adjust something to be flexible to because we have been doing it for quite some time. But another thing is what separates you from the pack is, this year everybody's gone through COVID. So I don't want to get a bunch of talking about overcoming challenges of COVID. I mean, this year, many people had to close pools, or they opened them and they had to deal with the challenges of that. So just think along those lines of outside of your community and that other people are applying for this, what really stands out for you as a community, and consider that other people might include some information that's happening to everyone else on their application or in their essay. Some of the things that I found really interesting with the applications that were submitted were the thinking outside of the box for regular association stuff. And if you review past essays and winners, you see there's a concept there of not just sticking with the norm. I remember years past there was a community that uses goats. I mean, that's like, who thinks of that? You know, but that's kind of along the lines of, I don't expect you to go get goats, but, you know, you need to think about, you know, different things, like maybe if your clubhouse decided, hey, let's go green and we put solar panels on the roof or something like that. Like that'd be something interesting that separates you from the rest of your initiatives that you're taking for the environment. Yeah. Find anything, Greg, that
And that's a good point. You know, the essays are really where sort of the decisions are made. There's a lot of, you know, on the objective questions, it's a point value. You get to the essays, and that's really where the judges spend a lot of time looking at those on voting on who's going to be the winner. And you don't have many words, so make sure every word counts. And you don't always have to just try to do a general description. As Candace alluded to, you can talk about a very specific item that helps reflect why you are so good. In a prior year, we had a winner talk about their challenges in developer transition and a developer going bankrupt, and what the community did to save itself and work with the local community to try to make sure the community survived, literally. And speaking with those authors, they were like, well, we were nervous because it may not have looked real positive, even though at the end it was a positive. But they saw the result is that they got the award. I mean, they showed in that essay showed all the work they did and to a very significant problem and the successful resolution. It was a specific issue. It was great. We've had winners describe their community overall and do a very good job. So think about it. When you're looking at the question, have a discussion with your fellow board members or committee members who are working on this, and try to figure out a good theme, and then try to get it down to the limited number of words. We know that's a challenge, but if you can do it, it really shows some excellence. And we mentioned above and beyond best practices, and Candace alluded that too. It's, you know, are there ideas that are out of the box? You know, hiring goats to do landscaping in difficult areas. Fantastic.
I'm writing that down. You guys are predisposed to liking goats.
Well, it's an interesting idea. You know, it's like the border collies that herd the Canadian geese off and out of your areas. You know, it's not using chemicals, it's friendly, it's approved, and you have dogs running around for a little while. It's these out of the box things that we run across. And we know every community is different. And with that individualism, you get these great ideas that we can all benefit from.
Are you saying for maintenance services? Okay. Can you do that with general?
so yeah, the one thing that Greg just mentioned was the word count. You need to put the word count on there. It's just a simple step. You know, when the word count is missing, well, guess what else is going to be missing? Points. I mean,
if you make us count words, it's not a good thing.
Right. Yeah. Like we're like, oh, they didn't put it on there. I mean, you know, that's what we're talking about, following directions. And, you know, we don't know if it's within or not. So yeah. Let's see, I think we have Krishana as well.
Yep, Krishana Lortz just showed up. She's one of our CAY judges. Welcome, Krishana.
Thank you. I thank you all for being so accommodating. I try to be omnipresent and attend a board meeting and this session at the same time, but alas, I am not divine. I am very human, so here I am. So I do appreciate that. One of the things I just wanted to really communicate to those who would be interested in pursuing this recognition is to relax about the process. When we were having our sort of pre-virtual event gathering, one of the things that we noted was there's just a lot of information that needs to be discussed and outlined, and you're communicating so much in a limited time and space. So if you're not careful, that can make you very, uptight, so, just relax and just talk about what makes your community fantastic. It's those intangible things that come through, especially in your essay. Application question, you're either going to get, for example, if it's allotted 5 points, you're going to get the 5 points, or you're going to get some fraction of that. But the essays are your opportunity to shine. If you're a good writer and you tell a good story and it's compelling and it makes me want to live in your community, that stands out to me. And for organizations that have been doing it a while and you feel like, oh, we've just always been excellent, tell us that, take this opportunity to brag on your community, take this opportunity to give yourself roses now, give flowers to your community now. Don't wait until another time. This is your opportunity to thank your volunteers, to thank your residents who are making their single largest investment outside of their families by living in your communities. So I think that's something that I just wanted to point out and take this opportunity to do that. Because if you take that into consideration, you're going to say something that separates you from the pack. You're going to say something that is above and beyond best practices. You're going to pay attention to the details, because if you want to communicate a certain message in a story, you're going to make sure that you do it well. So we won't have to ask you for your word count. It's going to be there, boom, like right in the top of the, the subject matter. It's going to say Greg Brooksher, community extraordinaire, 500 words. It's going to say it right there. And I cannot stress enough, I know Candace mentioned it in her comments, but following directions, we're people, right? So again, I told you I'm human. I don't know about the rest of the panelists here today, but I think all of us in one form or fashion have just found ourselves getting impatient with people who just don't follow directions. So help us out. Follow the directions.
Let's talk about the dry essays we've seen too, right? Like it was pasted from the community's webpage about us page. Like, don't do that.
Yes, don't do that. Your developer wrote that.
Yeah.
Most likely your developer wrote that piece 20 years ago when they put the first shovel in the ground.
Yeah.
And none of that says anything about the heart of your community today. We have had essays that said, and I quote, located in the pristine Loudoun County, 35 miles from, stop. No one wants a geography lesson of how many miles you are from the center of, from DC. No one wants that. Why do you want to showcase your community? So to Candace's point, don't do that about us, just copy and paste. We will pick up on that. We will pick up on that.
We will.
Yeah.
We will pick up on that.
Or make it read like your community association's newsletter. It's like, again, like Roshana said, it's a story that you need to think about. We're your audience. What makes us want to live in your community? What makes us or want to follow your community? Like, are you a leader in the things that you're doing that maybe other communities should strive for? Like, what would compel us to say, hey, let me call that community and see how they did X, Y, and Z. That's what we're really, kind of looking for is that leader level, top level quality work. And don't recycle. Whatever essay you submitted last year, please don't submit that again this year and change a couple of words and say, it's good to go. Like, don't do that either.
Yeah. Breathe some new life in. And I will say, even with respect to the product that you submit, we had a winner 3 years ago that paid a lot of attention to explaining, putting the heart behind their master plan. They had a strategic plan that when you hear the word strategic plan, the next thing you want to do is yawn. You hear the word strategic plan, you're like, well, like it's a boring on the shelf document. And they made that thing come alive to the point where when they presented as panelists at the conference and expo, we had audience members requesting that information to use as a template, and those panelists gladly shared it. And that's the thing that we want to see too. This is a spirit of camaraderie and relationship and community. We're not just that in word, we're that in deed. So just think of that too as you're communicating what makes your community special. Don't we want to see that replicated so we can drive somewhere and say, oh yeah, they got that idea from us and look how they're doing that. And oh my goodness, I got this idea from over here and look, I know I borrowed all types of things from past winners to implement in one form or fashion in the communities that I manage. And if my boards weren't gung-ho 100%, let's do it, I would just file it away because timing is everything. So sometimes we don't present it when everyone's receptive, and then you come back and circle back that same idea, and all of a sudden your board's like, yes, let's do that. So that's important too. I've read things where I couldn't wait to move into a 55 or better community. After reading, I was just like, that's what's up. They do all the fun things. And what woman wants to age rapidly so she can move into a 55 or better community? Well, if it's the bomb, then I want to be there. And that community, they were the liveliest bunch of people. And it came through in their essays. And we just couldn't, and then to meet them in person, you're like, okay, yeah, that totally makes sense.
That's it, right. And I think this really gets what you're hearing a lot of is the concept of enthusiasm. Does your enthusiasm for your community come through? Now, obviously, again, we're looking at, are you doing things correctly? We're presuming you're applying, so you have a pretty good operation already. As Ron mentioned, as you go through and look at the application, you may say, next year, we should work on these things. But we do recognize that with the different size of communities, there'll be different resources, and every community is a little bit different. But we do know, a small community is not necessarily going to have the resources of a very large community. But that doesn't mean they can't do things properly and well and exhibit best practices. They may be doing more on their own. Some things may not apply, but that's okay. We can work through that and look at those and see that on the applications itself. So don't necessarily have it scare you away, but if you're looking at it saying we're not ready, then do it next year. We always, we're going to keep doing it. We always want to have applicants.
I think we have a question as to whether or not CAI membership for the community is a prerequisite for applying, and if the management company is a member, does that count?
The answer to that question is it's the homeowner that ultimately submits the application. The homeowner has to have a membership. So Ron has a membership, Gail has a membership. If the manager has a membership, that's great, but it doesn't count. Because when I get those applications, the thing I'm looking for is whether the homeowner whose name is on that application is an active member, and they have to be an active member of this chapter. That's a good question. Thank you.
Buzz, thank you for answering.
Yeah, and just kind of a little marketing pitch here. You can actually get a really good deal on membership for your board. The cost for the membership a year or two ago expanded to include up to 15. Is that right, Liz? Up to 15 members of your board. So every single person on that board can be signed up and enrolled. And it's a great benefit. There's a wealth of information and resources to homeowner volunteers. So definitely consider signing up, if not just for this, but to be a member and to get all those resources at your fingertips.
So the only thing,
Just to add to that, if I may too, because the expansion to 15, we have 7 board members on our board, and so all of them are members, and we have 6 committees and a neighborhood watch coordinator. So we have utilized that 15 number to also have each of our committee chairs become a member, because then they get the emails and the publications and so forth. So it really is invaluable.
and all it really takes is 3 members. So once you get to that 3rd member, anything beyond 3, it could be 5, it could be 7, it could be 15. It's the same price.
And when you think about it, it's $16 and some change for the year. We spend that on 3 cups of coffee at Starbucks in a week. You know, we spend that on Ben and Jerry's, especially during the pandemic. Netflix and chilled was my jam at the beginning of the quarantine. I had to cut that off. So
Are you trying for an upsale right now?
no. I don't want any kickbacks or anything from Ben and Jerry's, because it doesn't matter if you get all the ice cream you want. If you can't fit any of your clothes, it's not a good look. So just consider it an investment in your communities. And for the managers who are listening, I'm going to borrow from Greg. Add it to your budget. It's budget season.
Yep.
Most budgets have a membership and dues line item. Just add it in.
Yeah, that's even one of the questions on the application. Did you know that? I bet you did.
And before we move on from the judge's perspective, I just want to say for the managers who are on the call, we know when you're writing the essay.
Yes.
Like, it's so obvious compared to the ones that were written by homeowner leaders. So it's a requirement that the essay be written and authored by the homeowner leader. We did have a community last year, correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, in Krishana, where it was actually 2 homeowner leaders who wrote the essay. One was a lead author, but the other one was a contributing author. Was that Montebello?
Montebello, yep.
Yes. So, and they won. So consider.
Yeah. And that was a good point I was going to make. Managers, you'll be asked to help out on some of the questions, but please don't write the essay.
I just want to piggyback one thing on the judge's perspective, and I'm just going to turn it inside out, is that it's not just the 4 or 5 people who are judging this. As you're doing your essay, you should be a judge and judge your own community. And look, the questions are geared towards making you a better community. So you should be judging all throughout the application to see where you fit in the pack and where you fall short and where you can increase your odds of winning. Not that winning is everything, but being a good community makes you a winner. So if you can, find out, gee, I'm short in this particular area. It doesn't matter if the judges knock you out because you couldn't fill this box or whatever. It's what can you do as a community to help yourself the next go around. You might not be ready this time, but you could be ready next time. So you can use the application as a planning document too. It just, the judges That's a contest, and contests are important. However, this is a tool that you can use to make your community better. And that's the way we look at it.
And we have a reminder of, at the sustainable question, we know you recycle, everybody recycles. We don't want to hear about recycling with the blue containers and you got a green recycling, your trash company. What else is happening? You know, have you changed your architectural guidelines to allow composting? Have you, you know, think again outside of the box, because we're tired of seeing those, I recycle. With that said, I think, are there any other questions for the judges?
Well, we'll move along and to the winner's perspective, and we have Derek Wilson and Gail Ledford and Ron Dion to help on that. They all, their communities received awards last year. They've gone through the process. You've already heard them speak a little bit on their perspective, but let's turn it over to see if they can impart some of their wisdom from their experience of going through this to those who are participating today who are interested in applying. Ron, do you want to kick us off?
Sure, I'll get you started. Why don't you flip to the next slide, please?
Sure.
And one of the things that we looked at when we had the Community of the Year awards, we skipped a year. We deliberately skipped a year because when we filled out the application, we realized that we didn't check a few of the boxes as well as we could. Not that we didn't do what was required, but we didn't do that extra 10% of thinking outside the box or whatever. And then our board got together and decided to do some things that would make us stand out from the pack. You know, what could we do to improve our association? So we set out to do that, and we had projects and we had milestones that we looked forward to, but we sat out an entire year. And that was a valuable tool for us sitting out. And I know the judges don't want you to sit out. The whole purpose is to apply, you know, for this award, but you can learn a lot about yourself just by doing that. So we applied just to use this as a check sheet to see where we are and how we can make ourselves better. And how did we overcome our doubts about entering the community? Well, like I said, we did a buy for an entire year, and there were a lot of board members that were not happy with that. But you know, in the long run, it turned out to be a good thing because the next year when we applied, we won. We had fixed a lot of not problems, but we saw some situations that we could do better. And if you read your quorum and your common ground and the Virginia legislator update, you know, you say, oh, gee, there are all these things that are out there, and you have to integrate all those great tools that are available to you. And when you do, you end up with a better community. How did we get to be a winner? Well, we were a winner when we submitted the application. It didn't matter if the judges said you won or you didn't win, because we went in and saying, you know, we feel good about ourselves. And that's the important thing when you enter a contest is, you know, do you feel comfortable in your own skin, or you're trying to, you know, pull the wool over the judge's eyes with, you know, fancy creative writing or whatever. We did all the right things, and we felt good as a community, and whether or not we had won, we had learned something in the process, and we made ourselves a better community. And did we get any intangible benefits from winning? I don't know. We occasionally, you know, put it on the bottom of our signature blocks. That's a great thing. The local realtors are eating that up because they think that's a great thing, a marketing tool that, you know, not that we had trouble selling homes in our community, but it's always a little feather in your cap that you can put it on the bottom of your emails or whatever. That's a nice touch. And it's sort of a validation to the entire community. One of the first things that we did is we thanked the entire community for bringing us to this point, because it's a community effort. Not everybody participates in that. And we've got some people that don't even know what the award is and didn't buy into it, but they're also participants in it just by being in our community. And we try to address all the people in our community to bring them along. Matter of fact, one of the things that we did this year, we opened up a pool. And well, we were advised many times not to open a pool. We had lawyers. We spent a ton of money trying to figure out what was going on. But a lot of our people wanted us to open a pool. And we had to creatively figure out how to do that safely. And we did. And, you know, we've got 2 weeks left for the pool to be open. And I think we did a pretty good job of responding to our community. That's an important thing, is listening to your people and trying your best to accommodate everybody's needs. The win, how did it contribute to improve the community? Well, we're in a constant swing. It doesn't matter if there's a contest or not. We are in it, not to win it, but we're in it to play it. And the more that we learn, the better we become, and we all feel good about ourselves in the long run. I thoroughly enjoy sharing ideas with other people, learning from them, learning from their mistakes. That's important too, is, you know, not everybody hits it out the box the first time, you know, but what we learn and what we can put into practice from different communities, different size communities, how people do things. Because it's like a giant jigsaw puzzle, and you just kind of have to grab the pieces that go in the right spot and at the right time. Timing is everything. And, you know, if you need to sit out a year, that's what we did. And, you know, don't be ashamed of that, but look at that application and use that as a roadmap for going forward.
I'd like to jump in there about Ron's comment about skipping a year. Our community, Daventry, was a winner in 2009, and I think we skipped 10 years. We didn't apply for 10 years. And if you, as board members, in particular, homeowner leaders, are serving on your boards or committees, you sometimes get so bogged down into trying to make improvements, trying to add in new concepts, rewrite documents, et cetera, that you don't necessarily take the opportunity to step back and reflect on all the positive things, or even all the challenging things that have gone on in your community. You just sort of have your nose to the grindstone, and you're going to board meeting after board meeting and project after project completion. And so our property manager encouraged us to apply. And we weren't thinking at the time that we probably could be competitive. However, just that notion of applying for this award and looking into the document and saying, well, hey, you know, we've done that. We've done this, we've done that. We realized that we had accomplished an awful lot, and that it was a good opportunity for us to try to showcase some things that we had done over the many years. And so that kind of also feeds into the, how did we overcome doubts about entering into the process to submit an application for our community, because it caused us to step back and reflect a little differently. And I will say that, like I mentioned when we began, we have 7 board members, and one of our board members wasn't particularly enthusiastic about us applying for the award, and thought that perhaps we would not win. And if we did, we still had so many challenges in our community, so perhaps the award wouldn't mean so much. But the rest of us just said, well, you know, if we do win, you don't have to celebrate with us, but we're going to celebrate if we do win this award. And so it allowed us to step back and take a fresh look at our community in a different way than just being bogged down in the day-to-day. What about you, Derek?
So for the process, as far as why the community applied, we actually got excited by attending the expo, and at the end of the expo, we sat in on the CAY session. And when we left that session, we were all excited. We had some board members that participated, and the management team. We were all there, and you know, just being a part of that session just kind of instilled in us, like, hey, we want to put an application in. We really felt like that we were on board to be in a community association of the year. And so we knew that we wanted to apply for the next year. Now, one thing that we didn't have enough sense to do was to go ahead and pull the application and start looking at the applications prepared in advance. However, when that time did come and we looked at the application, it was overwhelming. It definitely looked overwhelming in the beginning. But as we sat down and they pulled people from committees, the board members participated and kind of divvied out different portions of it, then it became, it wasn't as bad. And then when they dived even deeper into it and realized that a lot of the things we were already doing. And so then at that point in time, the smiles really, came upon our face, but definitely just looking at the application as a whole, it certainly can be overwhelming and potentially discouraging to move forward. But I wouldn't stop there. Just, break it up in sessions. The board members can divvy out the portions that they want to do. Get some community volunteers to participate as well. Volunteers that's already serving on committees, and then just getting the community involved. I think that's, the fun part of it. And as we were going through the process, we really felt like we were winners. We really, really felt good about the application that was being put together. And we pretty much was on the same page that when the application was dropped in the mail, it would be great to be announced a winner. However, we felt like winners, and it just created a sense of community. You had board leadership that was very effective. They understand association management. We had committees that were being productive and getting things going. You had credentialed management team members and management companies that supporting these aspects. And so at the end of the day, we were excited to hear the final words that we did win. But when we sent that off, we truly, truly felt like we were adhering to the best practices and going above and beyond and engaging the community, having the right tools in place to hear from the community, to get information out to them. It just was really exciting because we get so caught up in the day-to-day of everything, and 3 and 4 board meetings a month and potentially more and different things of that sort, that you don't realize that you're doing all of this great work until you sit down and see it on paper. And so I like to say that just the individuals that are participating in this session today, you're already a winner because you've already decided to step out and let's see what this is about. The next step is completing that application and turning it in. And once again, you're still a winner because you're going to realize all the things that you're doing great. And then you also will recognize some areas to where you can improve upon. And that's what life is about, is always trying to improve upon things and get to the next level. And so I just would like to say, be encouraged. And it's a good form. I heard earlier we were on a call and I heard someone mention that it's a great report card, which it really is. It's also, you can consider it like an audit of what's happening and things. But it just was an awesome process. And once again, like I said, it really helped to the sense of community. And so by winning this, we made sure that after it was announced that the association had won, to announce that out to the community as well, to let them know the results. But we took it a step further because, some people may think that, oh, it's just because we have a beautiful community, or, oh, because we have this. And we just kind of educated the community that it was way deeper than just a beautiful community with some gates and a pond and some beautiful waterfalls and those type of things. It goes way beyond that. And I really believe that it helps just for them to understand the involvement and participation that the committee members are putting in, the board members are putting in, your management company is putting in, and then they want to get involved in that prospect and be involved in that process as well. And so we just took it to the extent of just, putting the word out there. And I think I used the bragging rights for about 3 years to where my colleagues, Derek, it's over, it's done. You need to get on a new boat and then, get another award. But I just used it just at every opportunity. We had our poster framed and we have that hanging in the building. We also created extra posters that we would put out at various events, your national night out, at community meetings, and just really pump that up to let people know that it's about a community and it takes a village. And it just seemed like it just really helped people to really care and be, excited about where they live. And I'm sure they were using as a bragging rights and, sharing that with their friends and colleagues and things of that sort. But it was a fun process. It really was. And it was even greater to be announced as the winner. But, everyone, there's a lot of great communities out there doing great things. So don't get discouraged if you did not get selected for this particular year, because there's just so much greatness that's out there. But keep it moving forward, keep it fresh, and, come back again.
That's awesome, Derek. Thank you. And I hope people who are attending and listening can hear the enthusiasm from Derek and from Ron and from Dale, the enthusiasm of their communities, the the love and care they have for their communities. All of this translated in their applications. So as judges, when we went through, again, you could hear their enthusiasm. All of that translated in the applications. And from a judge, again, we can pick that up. And this is the excitement that we like to see. And this is what can start to, when we're going through reviewing applications on, you know, separating out, you know, some of the better applications from them all. I mean, we love everybody who applies. We give everybody credit because it takes a lot to do the application, and we recognize that. But hopefully you've kind of heard this enthusiasm. And again, trust me when I say all of that translated in their application to us as judges.
This seminar wouldn't be complete if you didn't have some kind of sports tie-in. But think of it as basketball. Just about everybody can dribble a basketball, and some can even shoot the basketball. But the ones who are really good, they learn the plays, they learn endurance, they learn things along the way that make them better players. And that's sort of what this application is. It makes you a better player. If you fill out the entire application right to the very end, right before you hit submit and go, you know, we're falling short on that, you're a winner. Guess what? Because you learned something about your community and you can make it better for the next go around. So it's a constant learning experience.
Just another thing to add too, just about the questions in the application. One of the things that you'll likely find is many of the questions might seem to be emphasizing some of the administrative processes within your organization with regard to vendors that you use and contracts and those types of things. But don't forget to highlight and focus pretty heavily on your residents as well. I mean, you wouldn't even need a homeowners association if you didn't have homeowners and residents in your community. And so many of them are contributing in ways that aren't necessarily formal. Say they're not a committee chair or they're not on a board, but they come out for events of spring cleanup or the many recreational and social and leisure activities that your community might have for the year. Whether or not you put on special programming for children and what those kinds of things might mean for kids. You know, and since this is going to be the 2020, although Candace had said earlier that yes, we've all lived through COVID, so we don't necessarily think about just documenting what we did, but what might have made a difference for some of your residents that had their lives changed because of COVID? What kinds of activities and participation occurred among your residents that brought them together and helped parlay some positivity in an otherwise pretty boring spring and summer for your residents?
I just want to do one more thing here too. The award is the Community Association of the Year. I want to stress the word community because a lot of us just gloss over that because it's in the title. But your community is your neighbors. It's the place you live. It's the people you interact with. It's all the committees. It's all the newsletter deliverers. It's everybody. It's a community. And I don't think we emphasize that enough. The association part of it, that's sort of the administration, what we do, how we do, and all that stuff. But your community is where you live. And that, you know, you put your efforts where you live. Those are your neighbors. And that's what your life is all about. You're proud to be a member of your community. Would you want to live in your community? Not, I'm there and I'm a member, but would you want to move there?
Okay,
That's an excellent.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Derek.
I'm sorry, I was just going to say,
and then
Ron,
I will follow.
Okay, no problem. I was just going to say that's an excellent point, Ron. It really is about community, and I believe that that's going to show in that response on the application. So your completed application is really going to be able to tell whether this is about community or whether this is just an individual person endeavor or something of that sort. But in your responses, it really is going to talk to that community. And at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's about community and bringing everyone together. And so excellent point there.
I just wanted to let you know there's a question The question is, can communities win more than once, or is there a time limit between awards? The answer is yes and no. For the Community Association of the Year, there needs to be a year separating when you won and when you can reapply. So in the case of Ron and Westridge and Gail with Daventry, they can't apply for Community Association of the Year this year.
Vacation!
However, yes, you're on vacation, sort of, because there are still 2 awards that you can still go for, which is the Charitable Community of the Year and the Communicator of the Year, and you could apply for those every year. So even though Ron and Gail can't apply for, in their category for Community Association of the Year, they can still apply for Charitable and Communicator.
Hint, hint.
Right. And with that, so the Charitable Community of the Year, it is another award we give out. And again, it is designed to see how your community fits in with the greater community. And focusing, again, as Ron said, on the word community. You know, our associations are individual communities, but we're part of a greater community. Does your association reach out? What do they do? It can take all forms of charitable. You know, last year, Heritage Hunt contributed over $13,250 in scholarships. We see a lot of support of local schools. We see a lot of support of charities. And this is just, it's just great as a judge to read this and see how much our communities are doing for their greater community. And so put it in, talk about it. It can take a lot of different forms of what it looks like, and tell us about it. This is the fantastic stuff we love to see. You know, it's easy to beat up a condominium. It's easy to beat up an HOA and say they're not great. We know better. We know differently. Our Charitable Community of the Year award and the applications just show that tremendously. And so don't hesitate on applying for it. Tell us what you're doing within your greater community. We really want to hear about it.
And I just want to add a joke, because one of the aspersions that are thrown out with respect to community associations, whether you're in a condominium, a HOA, a co-op, is that your dues are so exorbitant for whatever reason. You know, we won't argue the necessity of dues and your legal obligation. But look at this community. They paid their dues and they still found it in their hearts to contribute financially to the needs of their community. So that's important too. My grandmother always told me that you do what you want to do. And so when you see communities like this, they're showing we say we want to help, and they're putting their money where their mouth is. So that's really important too. So it's not a financial thing. We're not looking for big dollar signs, but we're looking for a commitment, you know, outside of what can I get out of it. And that's evidenced in the Charitable Community of the Year.
And that's a good point. On it's not a dollar amount who gave the most. It's all encompassing what was done. And you can see on the description from Heritage Hunt, you can see how much organization that takes, which is reflective of the community itself. You know,
that's a really nice award too, in terms of dispelling the myth of the new Geico commercial about what HOAs are. And so it's great for people to have. Pardon? What?
You didn't like that commercial?
No, not really.
No.
But the nice thing about the Charitable Contribution Award is that it does help people then begin thinking about the types of activities that are sort of outside of the box that HOAs are involved in, like, you know, ARC inspections and some of the other things that people might view as more mundane and might want to make funny commercials about. So.
Were there any other questions on charitable community? I think see one about participating in watershed. Would that count? If your community is organizing to help the greater community, in my world, it counts. It doesn't necessarily have to be money. It can be support. And the question was for watershed cleanups. I think that would count. I mean, I could discuss it with the judge.
Sweat equity.
Pardon?
Sweat equity counts.
Yes, sweat equity counts.
Definitely.
Okay, we also have Communicator of the Year award. And we've all heard the jokes that in our industry, the three most important things are communicate, communicate, and communicate. This helps reflect that. How well does your community communicate? And a lot of this also, we look in, it's sort of the feedback loop. It's one thing to communicate. It's another thing to receive information back. And then what do you do with it? We've had applicants in the past talk about their newsletters and Facebook pages and Twitter feeds. And when we've asked what do they do with the feedback, they're like, no, we just receive information. Okay, that's one-way communication. We're looking for two-way. But we've all experienced in communities we manage or communities we volunteer on governing just how important it is to have an effective communication program. So let us hear about it. Communicate to us how well you communicate. It is extremely important in our business operations. And we've seen a lot of great creative ideas that come from some of these applications for the Communicator of the Year. So if you think you have a very good program on communicating to your community, getting feedback and using it, please apply.
I think one of the essays we read, or actually applications for Communicator of the Year award, that I really liked is, actually there was a few ideas that I liked. One of them was, you know, how things are handled at community open forum during the board meetings, and how the community follows up with a written response to the questions that were asked at the meeting. You know, that's very helpful. Not everybody stays on for a response, and not all boards have time to respond to the community at open forum. So it was nice to see different ideas being passed about that. But, you know, part of the application for this, I think we need to mention, is that you have to actually give us some samples. We need to be able to get into like website access to see if you're really doing this, or you just said you were doing it. Did you just do it last week and then that was it? And we're like, oh, we did it. It says of the year. So we want to know throughout the year, you know, how are you doing this, or is this like a one-time thing? So just like Ron said earlier, you know, if you're not doing it now, there's no shame in it. Maybe this needs to be your goal for next year of, hey, we need to get on board with doing this and come back strong and apply for the Communicator of the Year award.
And to flip side on that, I think it's important to provide examples of when you have to communicate a difficult message.
Mm-hmm.
Our industry delivers difficult messages daily. It is just part and parcel with what we do. But there is a way that you can do that to where whomever you're communicating with, they leave maybe not liking the message, but they understand the message. They will give you buy-in into that message. And they also don't dislike the messenger. You know, so if you communicate in a way that is clear and concise, but in a way that you want to educate, we want to see that as well, because we all know that while we're not going around our communities and taking a chainsaw to your mailbox, as in that commercial that we will not give any more credence to after this comment, you may have to write a letter to a homeowner that put in a pink flamingo lawn ornament that they love. They grew up in Florida. These are beautiful. Like, what's the problem? And so you may need to communicate in a way, flamingos are lovely. However, this. And so just to make it so, because it's not all sunshine and roses. Sometimes we are dropping a bit of a hammer on folks, but to quote my pastor, sometimes you can wrap a little velvet around that brick, right? So it doesn't leave a mark. Like, so just, you know, there's a way that you can communicate clearly and authoritatively, but in a way that your residents in your community have buy-in to that message. Just wanted to point that out.
That's an excellent point. Appreciate that. And so you'll see on this, it's a lot of the engagement and your messaging. And on the bottom one, it says, do we have a mission statement? And don't forget that, because if you have one, let us know. Not everybody does, and it's often a very good thing to have, especially when it comes to communication.
If you have one, read it often.
Yeah, read it often. When you're sitting at a board meeting, having a contentious debate about a subject, pull out the mission statement. You know, is our decision supporting this? Yes or no? And it can help pull everybody back together and refocus, which is good to see. Well, our session goes until 5, and we have about a little over 15 minutes left. Were there any questions from anywhere in the group on how we can help you on these applications?
One thing I wanted to mention, since we just spoke about Communicator of the Year, sometimes it's hard to upload those documents as part of the online application process. So if it's better for you just to mail it, you can certainly mail it to the chapter office. I mean, that absolutely counts. And then I will put that piece with the application. So don't be discouraged if you can't get everything uploaded online. We do take the actual paper copies.
And for years, we had a community who would always deliver their application and include sort of their welcome basket they give to all new owners, which was just a fantastic little visual. So we're like, what's this welcome basket? The application's in it, and it shows, it helps.
And every year there's at least one.
Yeah. So that's a good point, Liz. Some of those things are.
Was there chocolate in the basket?
Pardon?
Was there chocolate in the basket?
Never by the time I showed up.
I would volunteer to be a judge.
Hey, Liz, just a point to maybe just to clarify for folks.
Sure.
So if people do a hard mail-in because it is difficult to upload documents, how many copies would you want of that? Just one, and then you all would replicate them for the judges? Okay.
Just one. I mean, the Communicator of the Year, you really can't judge it online. For everyone, we do have a remote. We started early. We upload everything onto Dropbox, and that's where the judges do their judging, pretty much. But in the case of Communicator, that's kind of tough. So usually the judges actually show up at the office and judge in person. So we really only need one copy of all of the materials that they would like to include.
I have a question that may not have been asked, but maybe someone's thinking of it. And that is, in light of COVID and all of the precautions that we are currently living under, do we anticipate that affecting timelines for our applications? Are we, we're looking good as far as that is concerned?
Well, the deadline is September 30th. It will remain September 30th. And as far as the judging, we will work that out. but everything is on task. So September 30th is the deadline, and then we start judging. The goal is to actually notify the winners before Thanksgiving.
And just to reiterate, with the September 30th deadline, and today being the 20th of August, it's not too soon to start now, because the questions are not simple multiple choice questions to answer.
You took the words right out of my mouth, Gail. I was going to say, I hope people are starting to take notes on their applications, even as we are discussing this, because while this has been a COVID summer, whatever that means, I feel like it was just March last week. You know, in one way, I feel like this has been the longest year ever. And then on another, it's been, oh my gosh, it's nearly September. So I would just strongly encourage those who are listening, or those that might be sharing with their colleagues who couldn't get on this call or on this webinar, to get cracking, you know, start the process.
I'd also like to add something, that if you are going to mail it, it does need to be postmarked by September 30th. And I would shoot Liz an email just so she knows to be on the lookout with it, because in my office here, we aren't getting our mail regularly.
Right.
If you are going to mail it through the snail mail, which is really snaily right now, I would suggest sending Liz an email so she knows to keep an eye out for it.
That's a good point.
Yes, thank you for clarifying that it's postmarked by September 30th and not received by September 30th, because that really makes a difference. So thank you for that.
All right. Are there any questions from anybody? Oh, then we're actually a little early. Liz, did you have anything you wanted to add on closing out then? Elizabeth Kirk?
Yes, actually, I would like to thank all of you presenters. You did a great job. Last year's and past winners, you did a great job. This is, as co-chair of the Public Outreach Committee, this falls under that category in one of our subcommittees. And I would like to thank our co-chairs of that subcommittee, because without them and all of the judges, this doesn't happen. So I would like to thank Krishana Lorge of the Adagio, who is on this call, and her partner in crime is Danny Bressler with Tepfer Construction. So thank you, ladies. So I am Elizabeth Kirk with TRC Engineering, and I am an educated business partner. And TRC Engineering has been a member of the chapter for over 14 years, and we are very proud to be benefactors of the chapter. Chapter has some great events that are coming up. Next week is our webinar on, I took notes, and I lost them. Here it is. About hiring and firing. And it is led by two lawyers from Whiteford, Taylor, and Preston. We have Tiffany Relford and Jennifer Jackman, who will be leading that. And it starts next Wednesday at noon. So if you haven't registered, there's still time for that. Also, our first in-person event, which apparently you can use this to incorporate into your charitable application. The chapter is having a watershed cleanup on September 26th. If you would like to participate, you may reach either Liz Shell or myself for that. And then we have our golf tournament on October the 16th, correct? So I think that is all I have to say in regards to everything, other than thank you guys for what a great job you did presenting. You really did a great job. Very proud of you all.
And if there's any questions, please contact me. I'm happy to help you through the process.
I do have Ron, when you were talking about standards, you know, just to have the minimum standard. In our engineering world, we have codes. And when you build or design something to code, that is the lowest standard. Just so if people are saying, oh, well, it's to code, great, whoopee. You always want it better than code.
I lived in India for 5 years.
What's that?
I said, I lived in India for 5 years, and we had a system. It was the 70% solution. If you can get what you want done to 70%, you're good. You'll never get to 100. You can strive, but settle for 70%. That's the minimum standard. So we do that with contractors and everything else. There's a minimum standard, and then there's the gold standard. And we're all shooting for the gold standard as community associations of the year.
Absolutely.
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 All right.
Well, if there's nothing else, thank you everyone for joining us today.
Yes, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thanks. You too.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for coordinating this. It was, I think, helpful. I should have participated in it last year before we submitted. It would have been helpful.
Actually, several of our winners did participate last year. I mean,
Yeah,
they came to the meeting.
Yeah, that's a good tip.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Anyway,
All right,
thank you,
thanks,
everyone.
everybody.
Stay
Bye.
safe, stay distant, and wear a mask.
Yes.
Gee.